Let's bring in the royal biographer now, the historian as well, Sarah Gristwood. Sarah, good to see you this evening, local time. So, like we just pointed out there, so many nods to the past today. We're just drawing up the comparisons here between Queen Elizabeth II lying in state now, as opposed to her father, King George VI, 70 years ago.
Well, as you say, it was a very different world then, a very different London. Not that long, of course, after the end of the Second World War. And I think then that kind of attention and deference was something that maybe the royal family could take for granted. Today, it's very different. And so the fact that so many people are expected to come out and pay their own tribute to Elizabeth II really does say something about not so much how the monarchy is seen, but how she personally came to be, admired, huge affection as this kind of icon of stability.
Yeah, she is absolutely an icon of stability. People feel a little bit unsettled over this next 4 days, and it's how they kind of unify and get past it. The history of Westminster Hall is something that I can't really get past. We know this is more than 1,000 years old. But Sarah, the significance of it, is there a bit of practicality here? The size of this hall, the location of it, in terms of her lying in state, was there any other option?
No, not really. I think it was always going to be Westminster Hall. But I totally agree with your point about practicality underneath the ceremony. And one sort of practicality there is that it's very good for the monarchy and for the new King Charles to have this kind of evocation of the past and the kind of, shock and awe, if you like, that provokes. Because we've seen in the speeches that the new King Charles has made a very conscious effort, on the one hand, to say that, things are different in his day to when his mother came to the throne, but on the other to evoke the traditions and that past. And I mean, you absolutely see it there, don't you? The uniforms, the orb and the sceptre, the hall. It's a kind of reminder of what the monarchy's always felt it was good at. And on the one hand, it's, just sheer pomp and pageantry, and we all relish the spectacle. But on the other, Queen Elizabeth herself, maybe the monarchy more broadly, did become this kind of, symbol, especially in the very dark days we've just gone through, the pandemic, that we'd had troubles in the past, we'd survived them. Guess what? We'll survive this.
Sarah, I was reading Winston Churchill's eulogy today at King George VI's funeral, and he said, "All this we saw and admired. His conduct on the throne may well be a model and a guide to constitutional sovereigns throughout the world today, and also in future generations." So he's talking about King George VI there, obviously not knowing then that King George VI's daughter is going to have an even bigger impact.
Yes, well, absolutely. And really, the question is, what, if anything, is going to change in the new reign? Whether it is King Charles who's going to have to change, the habits he had as prince of speaking his mind fairly openly and espousing sometimes controversial causes, or whether it is the role of the constitutional monarch that's going to have to shift a little bit. Because, as you say, Elizabeth, like her father George, made a huge point of being absolutely above the fray. No one was ever supposed to know what she thought. Now, is that the way ahead? Or do we want something just a little more edgy, a little more openly involved from King Charles?
Sarah, wonderful to talk to you. You made the point that the monarchy thinks they do this kind of thing well, the ceremony. They absolutely do.
They really
you
do.
are the best in the world at this kind of ceremony, tradition, conservatism, and we have seen that on display today. Wonderful to speak to Sarah Gristwood today, linking the past and the present for us.